You are in the temple of the rant, where I rant about whatever my $15 a month plus patrons want me to rant about. You can get one of these by becoming one of those. This one's for Jens Bauman, who says, I'd like you to rant about the problems with anime and adaptations of manga. Things like anime original content, when the anime catches up to the manga, filler arcs, making content less violent or sexy for the TV, differences in character design, like the characters in My Hero Academia, which look different from the manga character designs, and so on. I don't know if all of those are necessarily problems. Like, I don't know if character design changes are always a bad thing. Sometimes they are. Oh, God, it's really fucking pouring out there all of a sudden. Um, sometimes they might be changed for the better. There's a lot of anime adaptations that I think do look better than their manga counterparts. But yeah, I mean, you're going to run into a lot of these issues, especially when it comes to adapting a longer running manga. Uh, Something to appreciate is that anime adaptations of manga are often just advertisements for the manga in question. They're not really meant to stand alone as a completed work. They're more meant to, generate interest in the property so that you will then go and read it. Or just, as a supplement to the sales of the original source material. And I think a lot of these issues come down to just basically the different concerns of making a manga versus making an anime. When a manga author is working, all they really have to think about is how much money do I want to make? And how do I want to go about making it? So say that you just want a living wage, right? You don't necessarily have to write for a major magazine like Shonen Jump. Maybe you do something that's a little bit more low-key. Maybe you only do one issue a month. You can really decide on how much detail you want to put into each panel, what kind of story you're trying to tell, but it really all comes down to just one person trying to make something marketable enough to make money off of it. There's just so much more freedom, so much more allowance for you to tell the kind of story you want to tell. When you're making an anime, it's a huge team, a huge number of corporations involved in funding it, a huge number of people who have to get paid, jobs that have to be done, and none of them are the original author necessarily. Like, that person might be involved in the anime production, but they're not literally creating it themselves. So yeah, the character designs are gonna be different because it's not the same person. It's somebody who is trying to create something that looks similar enough that it would not upset the fans of the original manga, but it's a different artist putting their own spin on it, and then you have a whole team of people drawing those characters. It's not the guy who did the design who's drawing it in every panel. It's a whole staff of animators who have to interpret it individually every single time and try to get as close to the original character, the anime character designer's version of the designs, but you have to reinterpret them at all these different angles, all these different styles of animation, and then find a way to make them move. So inevitably things are going to be different. They're going to look different, and there's going to be different concerns. If you have to pay this huge staff, it's like, as an individual manga author, you're the only person you have to answer to is the magazine creators, right? So, let's say this magazine is willing to show tits because they, they aren't trying to sell to as big of an audience. They only have to sell to a particular niche crowd. Well, let's say that you're making an anime and you can't afford to appeal to as small of a niche as the original manga can, because there's so many more people you have to pay. So now you have to have concerns like, what's the biggest network we can get this on? How can we get the most eyeballs on it? What advertisers are willing to work with us? And maybe those advertisers don't want to have anything with bare tits in it. Maybe they have a policy against advertising against nudity, or the network won't allow it, So now you have to think about censorship, think about toning down violence, things like that. If you are trying to keep it coming out week by week and the source material just isn't coming out fast enough, you got to start making shit up, to keep the thing on the air so that people don't lose interest in it. Though in the way things kind of work now, I think people have realized that absence makes the heart grow fonder for certain things, you know, that like if there's enough hype surrounding something, it can disappear and come back again and again, and people will get newly hyped for it for its return, you know. There was AMC like famously did this with The Walking Dead, where they would just have their seasons broken into 2 chunks just to generate hype for when it comes back, because more people will have caught up in that time. You know, like not everybody is able to catch on week after week after week. So I think we get lucky with stuff like My Hero Academia, where they don't have to make filler arcs because they don't have to keep it on TV, because they're relying on the extra hype generated by people waiting for that next season. You know, and it gives them a little bit more time to make a higher quality product. It's more accurate to the original. But yeah, like all of these issues just come from the nature of what anime is versus what manga is. It's just such a bigger amount of people involved in the production. And there's obviously advantages to anime, such as color and voice acting and sound, music, like being able to make a scene feel more complete than a manga necessarily can. But that also comes with the drawbacks of let's say, with something like Berserk, Kentaro Miura has the amount of pull, he makes enough money off of the manga that he literally can delay a chapter as long as he wants and make it as beautiful as he wants it to be. Like, every chapter can come out, say, 3 months later than the last one, because the demand for Berserk is so high, and all of that money is just going to, one guy in one magazine. So, like, he could take his sweet time and make it the best possible product it can be. Again, with an anime staff, you don't necessarily have the power to do that. Too many people tied up in it. You can't just rely on one guy saying, oh, well, I'm making enough, I don't have to do this all the time, And then even then, some people would say it's a disadvantage of manga, is that if a manga artist is well-fed enough, they don't necessarily have to do things that are best for the audience. They could do what's best for themselves or best for their work. These are always the push and pulls that come with doing anything creative, really. It's all about asking yourself, what am I trying to get out of this? And, what can we do to best get those results? And the priorities are just going to be different when you have a different staff. It's not reliant on the priorities of the author. So, they're going to try to do something that pleases the audience as best they can, because if you fuck with it too much, you run the risk of alienating the audience and they don't want to consume it anymore. But obviously, a lot of these big shows have gotten away with filler arcs. They've gotten away with lower quality animation in places because enough people just want to watch an anime over read a manga. Like, for someone like me, if there's an anime adaptation that I think is ultimately weaker than the manga, I see no reason to consume it as an anime. I'll just go read the manga because, I'm just getting a better product, and I don't need it to be animated. But there are some people who just don't want to read. They don't want to go read a book. They don't want it to be in black and white. They don't want it to be, maybe they prefer the slowed down pace of an anime adaptation. And for those people, they're going to have to deal with those issues. But it's just a consequence of the fact that it's a bigger product. There's more moving parts, more at stake in its failure and in doing things in a way that will work best for them. So yeah, I think that these kinds of issues are unfortunate but natural, and I think most of us can kind of look past it. Like, I won't always hold it against a show that it has a filler arc. I can skip the filler arc if I really want to. I can just pretend it doesn't exist. I don't have to waste my time with it. I think there's a lot of people who really get it in their head that they have to consume media in a certain way to be, like, I don't know, fair to it, or to have a more, like, complete relationship and understanding of it. But you don't have to do anything. It's all up to you. You as a consumer, the only reason to consume anything is to get the most out of it for yourself. So I have no problem with, say, skipping a filler arc if I know it exists and I don't want to waste my time. I think when they make it less violent or sexy or something like that, it's like, well, that's disappointing, but I understand why it's happening. I'll just go read the manga or go watch an anime series that did take that risk and calculated the fact that they were going to take that risk into what they endeavored to do in the first place. I hope that makes sense.